What's up, y'all?
All right. Hello everyone. I'm glad to see some faces in here already. So we're gonna get started because it's 5 o'clock, and I just want to get through as much as possible. And I know everyone's busy, so we'll kind of do that. I'll kind of pass it off to Delphin. Delphin will be the one kind of hosting this meeting, so I'll go ahead and let him do it pretty much.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Hello, everyone. We'll get started. Thank you so much, Dr. James, and for your time. I know you're pretty busy, but I'll start off with kind of going through the questions as we've received from students. And then from there, if any questions come up and if anyone have any questions to ask, they will jump in and ask you. And yeah, so without further ado, I think I'll just kind of ask those questions and then you will introduce within those questions as we go and kind of your journey as well. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first question is, could you describe your journey from Trinity to where you are and what steps did you have to take, or would you do it any differently now that you're a surgeon? And yeah.
I guess so. Well, the journey from Trinity started kind of, I guess everybody kind of goes to Trinity, just has a dream to be a doctor, and, it's kind of just making it happen for themselves. And so that's one of the most important things, is just realizing that you gotta make it happen. You've got to work hard, and you've got to be the top, especially if you want to get into surgery. So I guess along the way, I finished up at Trinity, did pretty well, studied hard for the boards, above average, not amazing. But then the clinicals is really where I was able to just kind of set myself apart. Fortunately got one of the Chicago rotations back when they were doing those. And I got plugged in at the right time, at the right program, where these third-year residents were used to going to this hospital with interns and lost them. So me and one of my co-students were basically the interns for 3 months straight on surgery. So we had a very good experience, learned a lot. And then in fourth year, you get to do electives. Trinity sets those up for you if you want them to, or you can set them up yourself. And so I really use that as an opportunity to make connections. I did a lot of research on programs that accept IMGs into their medical school electives. So University of North Carolina was one of those. ECU, East Carolina University, was one of those. So I did a lot of rotations with them. And that allowed me to meet some connections where during my interview process, I was able to get a prelim spot at Case Western just from a phone call from my preceptor for pediatric surgery. So I didn't really match. I just matched into a prelim spot, worked hard as an intern, and then matched the next year in a categorical spot in Macon. So kind of started off slow, but then did well there for 5 years, got into a top fellowship, and here I am.
That's great. And during that time when you didn't get in, is there anything you did like to kind of help with the next residency application?
Application and interview wise, it's in order to get that application or to get that interview, you've got to have strong things on your application. Ways to set yourself apart are to have high board scores, honors in your classes, extracurriculars, volunteering, research, stuff like that. And so that's just getting the interview. Once you get the interview, then you want to change from all the stuff you did on your application to just being an interesting person. So once you're interviewing with the program directors, like their surgery is a 5-year program. And so they want to bring in people that they're going to get along with, have fun with, enjoy the learning environment with. And so at that point, you just want to prove that you're as interesting as possible, have good stories, the extracurricular part of the application where you talk about all the cool trips you've done or your love for, cooking or podcasts or whatever it is. You want to really use that to bridge conversations during the interviews to just come off as interesting and memorable, because they've got 100 people they've got to rank. You won't your name to be in their heads every time they talk about that list.
Okay, great. And how long does it take to get through a general surgery residency, like in general?
Typically, it's 5 years. For me, it was 6 because I did an intern prelim year at Case Western, and then 5 in Georgia.
Okay.
And then based on if you want to go directly to practice, you can end there, or based on which fellowship you want to do, it can be anywhere from 1 to 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, and this question is about rotation specifically, especially for we students here on the island and trying to transition. In terms of Trinities and them deciding where to do your rotation, how did that work for you? Like, how did you like do that transition? And
I came in right when Dr. Skelton kind of took over. And so he was bridging connections all over the country. And so they had rotations in Chicago where we were, and Baltimore. They didn't have the ones in Georgia yet. I think they had a couple in New York. But anyways, I got lucky and was able to go to Chicago and work there. But I think it's kind of a different situation now.
yeah, because now it's more in Georgia. Most of them are in Georgia.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I hear y'all work with Norm Marty. So if y'all want to do surgery, when y'all get out, get close with Patrick Normarty. He's one of the preceptors in Warner Robins, and awesome guy, but he's a great mentor. I worked with him in residency.
Yeah. And for one of the things to stand out for your residency, when you were on the island, did you do anything to help with your application, like volunteering or research?
I guess I did. Led some suturing workshops. We tried to do research on the island. We had some cool ideas that didn't really like go anywhere. Like we took blood pressure and vitals like on the island because there was KFC there and everybody was eating KFC, and we wanted to prove that people who had access to and it was very controlled because it's the same population of Vincentians.
Yeah.
And you've got the main island where you have people access to KFC all the time, and you have we went to Myro and took blood pressure and vitals there, and we tried to basically say that if you had access to KFC, you had a higher tendency of having high blood pressure or high sugars.
Yeah.
But kind of talked about that on the application, but we never really submitted anything or got that approved. But that was one of the things we tried. I mean, there was also like the surgery interest group, which we were part of. I was on student body. I was the head of the athletic department. Like, so I talked about how I like got the basketball goals there and all that kind of stuff. So just little things like that, just showing that you're motivated, that you're organized, and that you just make things happen. Because that's one of the things that they look for surgery is somebody who just makes things happen.
Right. Yeah. That's good. Good to know. Yeah. So for our next question is, why did you choose surgery? And would you do something different now that you're general surgery? Like,
Nope. I love what I do. Always wanted to do surgery. I like working with my hands, procedural stuff. Surgery is 5 years for good reason. You learn basically all of medicine and all of surgery. And so as a general surgeon, you can pretty much do anything, especially in trauma. I didn't actually like the robot when I started surgery. I wanted to do trauma and wanted to make big incisions and take care of people that way. But once I figured out the robot and the things that you could do on it, it was kind of a no-brainer. Played a lot of video games. So it's basically like playing video games at work. It's really cool.
wow. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And with that, like what are the kind of things you do with that? Like what procedures come along? Like what cases do you see?
Pretty much anything inside the belly. I did, my fellowship was in complex abdominal wall reconstructions. So any hernia I can fix with the robot.
Wow.
And do weight loss surgery, foregut, big paraesophageals, like colon inside the chest, fix those. That's fun. Colon surgery, and not only just take out the colon, but try to do it in the coolest way possible. So like I'll remove a colon through the anus and then put them back together so they don't have any incisions on their body, like things like that.
Wow. That's amazing. And for the future of surgery, do you think this is where the direction is going with robotic and higher end technology as compared to just normal?
Yeah, so there's data that is being captured right now, and it's basically a line graph that shows, open, laparoscopic, and robotic over the last 10 years. And 10 years ago for general surgery, it was probably less than 5% robotic, 50% open, 50% lap. Now it's 40% robotic, 35% lap, 25% open. So robot is the number one platform that people do surgery on in general surgery. And it's only going to go up. And eventually, I think when the world adopts robotic surgery, I'm going to have a platform in my living room where I'll be able to operate on 7 people from 7 countries in the same day.
Wow.
At least that's my goal. So I think they're trying to figure out the ping time to where if I make a movement, it happens in real time instead of having to wait a couple seconds. Once they get that, transcontinental surgery will be possible.
That's amazing. Yeah, for our next question was about what is the best part of your specialty, and to me it sounds like that already is like what would be for me.
Yeah, it's just being able to, it's just being able to do anything. So planning surgery it's not just a cut them in the middle and then take out the colon. You can put the robot trocars wherever you want to, design the surgery whichever way you want, unique for the patient, and just be creative. And you kind of get back some of that creative component to doing surgery instead of just following an algorithm.
Yes. And then the next question is, are there any reason why someone shouldn't choose your specialty?
If you don't want to go through the 5 years of surgery residency, that's kind of the big thing. It's a tough residency. People always question whether they really wanted to do surgery when they get into it, because there are long nights. There are difficult conversations, with patients, with families. But at the end of the day, if it's what you love and you couldn't imagine yourself doing anything else, then surgery is for you.
Yeah, I agree. And are there any stereotypes about general surgery, and also especially for being an IMG? Like, do you feel like there's any kind of thing happening with that? Oh.
Stereotypes in terms of about surgeons, or
I think, yeah, but maybe surgeons, and also just generally being an IMG international graduate. And
it's one of the more difficult residencies to get as an IMG, which is why you have to make yourself stand out in other ways. Like get the interview. Once you get the interview, you can talk about all the crazy things cool things you did on the island and all of that, but you just have to get the interview. So you have to have things on paper that make you stand out, which is step scores, honors and all that stuff. In terms of, do I think that having the IMG label behind my name affects me nowadays? I don't. I was worried it would. In residency, I think it did, until I had the highest in-service exam scores for my entire residency. And then at that point, it was like, well, this maybe doesn't matter anymore. So just making yourself stand out. And then it just kind of goes away. Nobody asked me about my residency or my med school anymore. They asked me about my fellowship and where I did residency. So at the next level, you can kind of not have to worry about that stigma anymore. But I think it's slowly going away.
Yes. And what would a day in life of a general surgeon look like?
It depends on what you do. If you are a trauma surgeon, then it's going to be a shift work type thing sometimes, where you're 7 to 7, you go in, you start covering traumas, and then you get off at 7 o'clock. If you're general surgery in a big academic institution, you just go in and cover call 1 in 5 days. And then you have your clinic and you have your patients that you're operating on that day, depending on your block day. So for me, I'm a general surgeon in a smaller town. This is kind of like a suburb. We've got 3 guys in our practice, so I'm on call like 1 in 3, which is a lot. I cover trauma, but I don't have to do much of that. I have 3 clinic days where I pretty much just go to clinic, and then I have my block day for OR on Fridays right now. And then I can add cases on Monday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon. And so usually I'll work about 3.5 to 4 days a week.
Wow, that's good. And would you say you have a good work-life balance in your field? And
yeah, I'd say that. I've got little kids, so I'm either at work or I'm hanging out with the kids, but I feel like I get plenty of time. I see them every day. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. If you could change anything about medicine, what could that be? Or how could you, like, what could that do? Like, yeah, something like that.
Change anything about medicine?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of dramatic. I don't know if I would really change much about medicine. I guess about like the access to it, the insurance component about how I want to do certain things in my hospital, and the fact how people are paying for it's never been a part of my decision making at all. But when I want to do bypasses, my administration's telling me that I need at least 4 out of 5 patients need to have insurance in order for me to do bypasses, and 1 out of 5 or less can be Medicaid. And I feel like that shouldn't even be a part of the formula. So maybe one day we'll get away from it.
Yeah. And yeah, there's this other question. It says, what would be the best way for a medical student to prepare for a surgical residency, especially
working hard in your clinical rotations, setting up hard electives, and don't just try to take easy ways out. So a lot of acting internships, those are the electives that are like the advanced 4th year electives that are for people who want to go into general surgery residency. And usually if it's called an acting internship, it's usually at a place that has a general surgery residency, and that's their way of weeding out 4th years. Try timing it right. So if you're going to be applying for general surgery in the fall for the next year, don't set up your most useful electives after the application deadline. You want to set those up in August or September. That way that you can make all your connections and get all of your letters before you apply. That's something that nobody ever told me really. So when I applied for general surgery, some of my letters were pediatrics. It wasn't ideal. So just make sure that you plan it out. You need all general surgery letters, and you need to get those by setting your electives up in plenty of time to get those.
And with that, do you have to do your electives, your favorite first, so that you can get all the letters ahead? Or how do you let someone know?
I set them all up myself, and then I communicated that with Trinity. They had, and I don't know if it's still the same way, but they had a certain amount of money that I could put towards those electives. And so they would pay UNC X amount of dollars per month for me, and then I would have to cover anything on top of that in order to do those electives. And then I could time those how I wanted to. So they would have end of July to middle of August to the beginning of September, and I would have to pick which time slot. And so going back, I probably would have chosen the harder electives in August and September, so I could have gotten those letters.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we had now they have them in one location, so hopefully that's much more convenient. And
yeah, but those are the core rotations.
Okay.
You can still do electives there, but you've got to ask yourself, does it benefit you to do your electives at the same place where you've already made all of your contacts for your core rotations? So if you did really well in your core rotations and you don't have anything to prove anymore, go meet more people, get more letters, get your name out there more, and get more phone calls.
Yeah, that's great. And what was your favorite part of medical school?
My favorite part was, had to have been the island. Just living on the island, being able to study at Beachcombers, the uni boat trips. Just experiencing all of that while also doing kind of the hardest thing in the world, which was trying to figure out how to learn all that information. Made it a lot easier, but that's an experience that I wouldn't want to change.
Yes, yeah, that's true. We are having a good weather, good everything. It's hard to stay on top of everything when everything is nice.
Yeah,
so
my strategy was waking up at 8 o'clock every Saturday and Sunday, going to Beachcombers and just start studying at a table at Beachcombers and just having like a rum punch
wow.
in the morning, or like a mid-morning kind of brunch.
Yeah.
And then by like 1 or 2 o'clock, just switch to hanging out, playing at the pool, and put the books out. And that was kind of the routine. It worked.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we have a lot of people doing that and playing volleyball, soccer, basketball, and going down to the beach and play volleyball over there as well. So
Nice.
it's been good. Yeah, so those are all the questions I had, and I'm just kind of gonna open to anyone in the Zoom to see if they have any questions for you. And yeah, we have a few minutes left, I think, before we run out of time. So if anyone has any question, please go ahead and ask.
Hi, my name is Abir. I just had a quick question. I don't know if you'd be able to answer this or not, but I am interested in interventional radiology. And I know in some cases you have to do like 1 year of a surgery residency before you do like the 2 years of your radiology and then the fellowship for interventional radiology. Do you know like anything about that?
It's called a transitional year. So you can either do a transitional year, a prelim surgery year, or a prelim medicine year. And so when you apply for interventional radiology, I think you'll apply like a couple of years out for the program, and then they'll have you apply for this intern prelim year ahead of time. So when I did my prelim year, I had ENTs, anesthesia, radiology. There are a lot of different specialties that make you do the prelim year, but it could also be a transitional year as well. As 2 different names for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, but doing surgery would help with that because you would do all your sticks and everything for central lines and stuff to learn access. But that's probably the harder way to go because prelim surgery kind of gets dumped on.
Got it. So because I thought that you had to do the 1 year of surgery, but it's not like necessary.
I don't think it's necessarily surgery. I think it's just transitional. So if you do a transitional year, you'll get some surgery, some medicine, some, a little bit of everything. I don't know if that's changed, but if that's what I'm thinking, I don't think they actually require you to do surgery. But might have to look into that. Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious because I was like, I've seen some people like they've done the 1 year surgery, and I was like, is that like a requirement, or is there? Because I know there's some kind of transitional year you have to do, but I don't know if it's surgery or if it's like something else you can do.
They got to choose, but the transitional year spots go quickly, and those are for usually the top candidates end up getting the transitional years. And everybody else ends up having to do a prelim surgery in order to fill that requirement. And nobody really wants to do prelim surgery because if you're not going to be a surgeon, kind of taking all that heat for no reason. And a lot of the grunt work, worse rotations, all that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have 2 questions that I just received. The question says, is there anything you wish you had done or focused more on the island or even in the States to help you go into surgery?
On the island, I don't know. It's hard to say. I didn't really know what to focus on at the time. So I guess looking back, I wish I would have made more connections at the hospital, because it would be really cool to go back and like work with the local surgeons and on advanced laparoscopic techniques. I probably will do that eventually. But it'd be nice to have a contact where I could just be like, hey, we spent all that time on the island together. let's make this happen. So that's probably what I would have focused more on the island for surgery specifically. And then, like I said, before applying, I would have timed my electives better, to where I got my strong surgery letters early in the process, so they were available for my application.
Yes. Yeah. And another question is about salary. It says, what does salary looks like for residency or attending, or is it better to work in any city? Like,
I would never focus my residency based on salary. Residency salaries are going to start anywhere between like 48 and 60,000 a year, and they'll go up every 2 years while you're there. Those salaries are based off of the ACGME and not really the hospital, and it's based on cost of living and all that kind of stuff. Actually, some of the New York salaries are lower than elsewhere, which is interesting. But I wouldn't really focus on the salary much as a resident. I would focus on being in a program that you like, a place that you like to live, because you've got 5 years and you want to enjoy it as much as you can outside of work, because you're not going to have much time outside of work. The salary as an attending is nice. It probably starts anywhere from 300 a year, and the higher end, like top quartile, is making anywhere from 600 to 700 a year. So that's where you really want to focus on your salary and contract negotiations, getting a lawyer to help you to make sure you get higher RVUs and all that kind of stuff. But you'll learn all about that in residency.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, those are the 2 questions I just received. So if anyone else has any other questions, go ahead and ask. And I think we have a few more minutes.
Yes, Dr. Parker, do you have any tips or advice for somebody who wants to go into plastic surgery?
Be good at suturing. You got to be very good at sewing. Work on tying and technique and skills beforehand. Set up your electives beforehand. I did a plastic surgery rotation, but I didn't do it at a place where the plastic surgeons were involved in any sort of plastic surgery residency, so I couldn't get letters from them. I did like plastics. There are 2 routes to go into plastics. There's integrative plastics, where you go straight into a 5-year plastics rotation or residency, or you can go into general surgery and complete that and then go to plastics. That's another 3 years on top of it. You only have to finish 3 years of general surgery, but it's kind of frowned upon because you committed to 5. And so actually one of my buddies is in his first year of plastics after completing 5 years of general surgery. So it's a longer route, but I mean, it's what he loves. So it's worth it for him.
Great. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yes, we have one more question. It says, what are some states that are IMG friendly?
I interviewed in Ohio. And it wasn't necessarily the states. It was more of, I think anything but California is really IMG friendly. California is kind of more Ross and St. George friendly, but not so much everything else. Like they're like Big 4 friendly. But everywhere else is pretty IMG friendly in terms of getting into a residency program. I had 10 interviews when I applied for a categorical spot after my prelim year. It was at Marshall in West Virginia. There was one near Mount Sinai in Baltimore, East Carolina and North Carolina, Mercer, which you'll be working closely with. And then Jacksonville, Florida, USA, South Alabama. So all over the place.
That's great.
It's kind of nostalgic looking at the backgrounds on y'all's screens, because I recognize the yellow walls.
Yeah. It's yeah. Did you ever have any lizards or anything like going in your apartment?
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a massive wolf spider once. That was really bad.
Wow.
The centipedes had that in our sheets.
Yeah.
Not me, a roommate. Just the experience.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, yeah, but definitely when you're here, you think about the next step too. So it's been constantly like, what's next and all of that.
Yeah. Are y'all all 1 through 5, or
We have term 1 to 4.
Okay.
And yeah, there's like upperclassmen in the group chat as well. So there's different class from different terms. They're all here.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that most of us are in our first or second term. I think there's some that are a little bit higher, but yeah, most of us are in our first or second term. So I think like for most of us, it's just trying to figure out what we got to do while we're on the island, to try to like stand out the most, because I know that that's like the biggest thing. Because like it's like what I've heard from before is that as long as you get the interview, you're kind of in, you kind of can forget about like you coming from an IMG and you focus more on personality, which I think you kind of just reiterated. So I'm glad that that's the case.
Build that resume, like the surgery interest group, come up with like as many positions as you can in order to make it seem as exciting as possible, and you can talk about how you were part of this and convince X number of people to whatever. Just use that. That's what you got to work with.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so it seems like there's not any other questions. So I just kind of want to close it out. I want to thank you again for giving us some of your time. I know you're probably pretty busy.
Yeah,
a lot of us are busy kind of just studying at the moment because we have midterms next week. So thanks for everyone who came out in that case. I don't know if Delphin had anything else to say, but again, just thank you.
Yeah, and I'm the preceptor for like the online clinical elective stuff. Like there's like all iHuman modules during like your second half. I precept that. I'm not super involved with that. So if y'all have any questions, like I get really behind on grading SOAP notes. I kind of think they're dumb, honestly. Like they're H&Ps, but they call them SOAP notes. Just as long as you submit them, you get a good grade from me.
Yeah.
I'm glad that's the case, because I don't think a lot of people here like the iHuman.
Yeah, I've realized that it's not a super helpful tool, and it doesn't really teach you much, but effort is counted, for me. So I don't give anybody bad grades on that.
Awesome. Yeah, so we are looking forward to that. And I think if we ever have question, we'll definitely reach out to you. And we do appreciate all your time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thanks.
See ya.
See ya. Thank you.